So what's up, P? How's your week?
It was good. I mean, I honestly I mostly played the run up to the FOMC. I was pretty confident that quite a few of those were going to go. Including that that day of it. I really didn't catch the big sell off after that, and was in kind of light on Friday. And on Friday, I was uh, playing the bounce. And so again, I'm kind of mostly down here looking for the sell off overreaction and then the bounce off levels. I know, because while I am
Yeah.
confident that some of these are going to sell off further, it just it can flip so fast. I mean, the rallies, they come really hard, and when you're trading options, I don't really like that kind of move as much. I like things to sort of calm down, and then I can see a bounce coming. So that was kind of my whole strategy. Mostly play the upside in a bear market. That's kind of been my thing lately.
Yeah, I think I mean we always talk about planning, but we had a little bit of a contradiction on Monday and Tuesday, and you I don't think you could have predicted Monday and Tuesday better. Um, Getting a prediction after the interest rate hike is that's anyone's gamble, and it was more the talk after the hike than anything. I mean, everyone knew the rate was coming. It was more their outlook or
Yeah,
their guidance that moved the market. Um, for me, I'm once we I didn't do great Monday Tuesday. Once we figured out the direction, it was pretty much what was holding against the grain, and I try to pound the table on that in chat. The EVTL was probably my best play of the week. But other than that, it's like psych bounces for on small positions. Pretty much is all I pretty much did
yeah,
last week. It wasn't great, but when we ended the week, I'm like, all right, I could do personally one more day, and a lot of charts are going to be back um, to a level I like playing them at. Whether and you can give them enough room to make a decision. So, um, kind of a rough week over on share side, um, especially with low volume. But um, if you know where to focus, or you have a plan when that happens, and again, I'll always state mine. That's finding psychological bounces or stuff that's just going against the grain completely. Um, Sticking to those two plans pretty much made it an okay week for me.
yeah. It's I mean, as anyone who's followed me for a while knows, like, basic materials is probably my favorite sector, and it's just been rough in there. I mean,
Yeah.
when I saw copper, just really struggle at 350 and then lose that, it's just bad. And so the levels that had been strong in AA and some others, it'll just fall right through that with copper prices doing that. So it's kind of just a wait and see in there. So before I get to SPY and QQQ, the my take on weed is that it's got some problems right now. And so to me, like, in terms of flow, I always look at Tilray first, just because it has the most. And not to get too much into individual plays, but there's a lot of potential for a move back to three, but there's just not a lot of strength over three right now to push it through. So to me, it's kind of a news driven sector. It's going to need something fresh to really shake out of this.
Yeah, I just always am mindful of these plays whenever we get come to an election cycle in general, which we're what 7 weeks out. So I mean, we might still be a little bit early on these for sure, but a state or two will always have it, in the mix, um,
Yeah,
in general, and that usually is a positive catalyst. I don't think we're gonna get the national push in the short term. I just don't see them using that right now, which they should because we create a lot of revenue. But we do have the November a state or two will pivot its laws. Usually they go in the direction of legalization. So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see how that works. I like they're all at all time low, pretty much across the board. Um, the tough thing about charting them is they have the pumper 2020 spot, so they're real hard to pick targets. But I mean, from $3 or even let's say 250 to already 250, um, it's pretty flipping low if it ever does get legalized.
Yeah, and it had that nice kind of secondary pump in like February 2021, and then sold off again. So I kind of like me looking at it historically, flow wise, everything else. That's kind of where I start. It's like after COVID and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, it's definitely something I watch, and it's pretty easy flow to read when they all just start to flood into the healthcare sector, and they get some of those secondary ones like Cron and ACB and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely watching for it. On the share side or leaps, I think that it's a pretty good spot to give it a try. I would just avoid
Is
weeklies.
is
There's
is the
no
is the
incentive
flow
to do that.
kind of neutral in the sector? Would you say like there's no downward pressure,
Yeah.
but there's
So
no
what
calls?
what the deal is? The the calls are leaning slightly bearish at 3C for Tilray. So that and there isn't a lot of sold puts to give me a floor on it. So I just want to see that situation improve a bit, and it can change very dramatically, and especially if like the whole market has some big rebound. There's a lot of room to run in these, so
Yeah.
you could see that too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big catalyst in weed to move them, but
Oh,
that's the
sure,
thing
sure.
that moves them like 20% a day. But yeah,
Yeah.
recovery to 3 um, around here is definitely plausible for Tilray.
When you get down to like 14 cents like Kern, you could move 100% in one day.
Yeah, exactly.
um, and kind of what we focus on, especially in this area, is the sector overall. And another sector that kind of doesn't, I guess it kind of fits the same kind of thing because it's like it's never going to be a main sector in our lifetime. Like weed won't be a main sector, but space, um,
Yeah.
and positive catalysts because obviously that's what's going to drive the market north is positive catalysts right now. Even for the mini rallies, you still need something positive. But the delay of Artemis 4 for the fourth time, um, which I think is good because it's going to continue to push these charts down. Um, but this time it's for a hurricane, I believe is why. So it's not like a technical thing; it's just they're lucking out on the weather side. Um,
Yeah.
but that's another sector that um, those charts are pretty much at all time low across the board.
Yeah, I right. And so and this one is it's kind of similar to weed. Like it's not my favorite play, but it's the one I noticed because of the flow, and that's Virgin Galactic SBCE. And it's really has no business being under about $6. I mean that's way oversold. So it definitely should be a pretty nice play when those get moving.
Yeah, I like the space sector just because of the amount of tickers and the way the charts move. Um, I don't like the weed sector as much. I like the sector. I mean, if we're picking planes or spaceships or weed, I'm taking the weed. But
Yeah.
just because you can tax it a little bit better, it's not like a rich person sport. Um,
Right.
but the charts I think are better in space, and that's why I like to stay over there. And when they get news of any kind, I mean, people just think space means it's a bajillion-dollar deal, right? Like we're taking people to the moon. That's a bajillion-dollar deal. That's what it's trillions, trillion, and it's it's kind of a pipe dream in a sense, but the speculation is kind of what drives stock prices, right? Like that's what
Right.
the other Virgin Galactic play, which we're on, has a supersonic flight. That's probably the most realistic of the space plays. But when those things get news, they can have a good quarter, for the lack of better terms. Um, yeah. So yeah, I like those two sector. I just think we need the positive catalyst and the election coming up, and then this launch, if it ever gets taken off, if they ever do take off, I think those two push the sector. So just something to kind of be on the lookout for, I think. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
where do you want to jump to next?
Uh,
Um,
let's talk a little spy
the
QQQ.
the big guy. Yeah, let's talk about the big guy.
Yeah. So for the one thing I looked at, this is kind of really for the first time. I never really looked at this time frame that much. I was looking at the monthly
Okay,
on
I like it.
Spy Cube, and
Let me grab that real quick. How far back?
the well, I was looking at it. Um,
10.
Everybody talks about 2008, right? And I
So what would that be?
was just kind of
15.
curious to go back that far, and to look at like the RSI is something I trade on, and
It was like at 2.
yeah. So
No,
like back
20,
then,
18.
yeah, the RSI was just like a disaster. But since then, in the big sell events in the market, like when things go south, it really doesn't go below 50 for very long on like the monthly time frame,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
And so like and basically,
50.
and like COVID obviously was kind of an extreme event. Those candles are kind of nuts, but even then, it
37.
bounced.
37.
Yeah. So so we're kind of there. I mean, I don't that doesn't mean that we're just gonna reverse right away or anything like that. But we're getting pretty close to a bottom on it, I think. And I think this is one potential indicator of that. And it's kind of even more pronounced to me in QQQ, which
Monthly?
the monthly, yeah. So this monthly is even lower, which makes sense given the stocks that are in here.
Yeah.
So it's down in like the 40s. So I think that we're getting pretty close. To me, it's about like a stock like Apple is obviously such a huge thing, and we talked last week about how Apple's really where it's going to come from in terms of the big sell off. So you could see Apple get down to like I don't know 140 between 130 and 140, I think before it turns around. But I'm uh, I'm saying this to say that I'm getting pretty skeptical of any kind of like put swing down to some dramatic level inspire QQQ. I think you could get burned on that, and we'll see how much further down we go. But I'm sort of more inclined to play the upside off the sell events, and just based on it being oversold in these larger time frames.
What does in your well you probably know this answer. Does Apple dropping, is it going to drop QQQ more or SPY more? Like percentage
It's
wise?
yeah. So in terms of its like the raw numbers on it, it would drop QQQ more.
Okay.
Just in, like the piece of the pie. But I mean, SPY can sell off just on market perception
Sure.
too.
Sure.
But yeah, no, Apple itself would impact QQQ more.
Okay.
SPY has been really getting hit hard because of the weakness in the commodity piece of the pie on that. So like this basic materials dramatic selling is hitting it pretty hard. In addition to what happened in with like Apple, Microsoft.
And the just from an RSI standpoint, SPY is holding levels well. QQQ looks in trouble. That's kind of why I asked that question. But that's just from
Yeah,
a
right.
RSI on this monthly you're having me look at, which I like this perspective. This is a good perspective, especially on SPY. Um, the only difference here is the MACD is in worse shape than the RSI than 2008. Um, yeah, no, I like it. 370
Yeah,
though.
yeah. I mean, QQQ by nature is it's more kind of risk on. So in this environment, it does make sense that it has a little more to give, I think, than SPY does.
Um, I nailed that 370 though. I was real skeptical until Friday, and then it kind of because
Yeah.
it was holding like 75, 78 real well, and then we crashed through that. So, um, what do you see this week over there in the old spy land for the people? Throw them a free bone.
Yeah. Let me see here.
I'm a TA guy, so I see us at least testing this 370. If we don't reclaim it come Monday, real quick, probably gonna act like resistance, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. I've got like, if you look at the activity for like later in the week, like 358 to 363 kind of comes into play on. So there's definitely some potential um, to dip down there. Those are pretty bearish contracts.
For me, this next week is the bear trap.
Yeah,
This market should flirt with some low numbers, and they really should pile in. Whether they can keep it down there or it continues down, that's another story. But this would be when they should
yeah.
they should
And,
pile in.
and here's the something that happens a lot in this environment. The traders who are actually they do this trying to be safe. It's like, I don't want to hold overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is we gap down overnight, and then there's really isn't much room to actually trade with on SPY and QQQ during the day
Yep.
on most days. So you'll gap down like 1.3% overnight, and then it'll dip to like 1.6, and then it rips back up to 0.8 or something. So the people chasing puts in the morning have a really hard time, even though the overall thesis of the market going down is right. So if I hold anything overnight lately, it's puts in small positions to try to catch that gap down, and then I play the upside during the day as we test some key levels. There's so many ways to play it, but
Is it?
that's just what I do.
I mean,
But
I'm not an options trader, but I always have like the stupid. This is my first time question, but
yeah,
um, I might have upgraded a little bit here, but wouldn't just like let Spy have a green day and then buy a put at close? Wouldn't that be the best way to play a put on Spy? Like it's not gonna
yeah. I mean,
have
right,
two solid
yeah,
days in a row usually. That's not happening. Like if you're gonna
right,
because
right.
the first candle, like if we do sell off during the day, that first candle is usually gonna hit the floor, but then you're gonna be in that zone the rest of the day, and you're not gonna go any lower. It had already had happened, and that just seems like the case. So you got to buy at the top of the wave, or you're not going to get a
Yes.
move down. And I think the easiest for me, it just seems the easiest way would be on a really good spy day to buy a put at close. That
Yeah,
seems like
and we get that spike into close a lot these days, and it's and it shakes out people who bought their puts at noon, or or one, or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think so. And you'll in those small positions like that, you can get something that expires 1 to 3 days out for like, I don't know, like 70 to $100. And, if we get it some decent selling overnight, you'll be up 50 to 80% or more. So yeah, I mean, there's a good risk reward, and it's definitely, has been safer to hold puts overnight than calls. And then, in my view, a little safer to play calls during the
During the
day.
day.
Um,
Yes, because just play
you
the
know,
pre-market low. If the pre-market low holds, you can buy a call.
yeah,
It's or the yesterday's low a day. Those are the
yep,
levels I would be playing. Like if it flushes at open and those hold, buy the call.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I posted to at a little bit before 3 Eastern on Friday. We had a pretty aggressive push down, and I just said like, it's really got to bounce here, and it did. It had a really significant um, bounce at that point. So you really don't want to be playing puts when you get that kind of consolidation, that dramatic move down. At that time of day, going into the weekend, I just wasn't that likely that we were just going to break some new support at that moment. So it bounced more than I thought it would, but that was to me um, a good spot as well. So don't get caught up in being overly bearish and thinking
oh,
that moment you're looking at the chart that it's just going to keep selling off all day. It's just not how it works.
yeah, just play the. I mean, play the range regardless of what you're playing. If it's too tight, find
Yeah,
something with better range. It's that
yeah,
simple.
exactly.
Um, lastly, here, sneak these two in, but just energy, I guess, is what it would be more than anything. Um, I kind of had a note oil at a higher low at 80. And I know we wanted to talk solar, so it kind of your wheelhouse here. So I don't want to take the starting away from the starting pitcher on
Yeah, yeah. Um,
that.
right. So yeah, Boyle. I'm really interested in
Yes.
some activity I saw on it. So right now, its price is sitting at 57. This can rip back to 70 very quickly. So the 70 C on it for 10/21, and again, this has monthly contracts. So basically, October 21st is the day that you want to be focused on as you swing this. And everything, all the strikes on it are all bullish up to 80 for 10/21. So they're pretty much expecting a pretty big, uh, pretty significant rally on Boyle. And the thing about it is, you're going to see it coming in futures. So futures can spike, 2-3%. Then you watch what it does in pre-market. If you're buying shares, you can start trading them in pre-market. But yeah, I'll be looking um, to get some calls on it. Anything up to 80, I think, is swingable from here.
Yeah, I only have one line on this chart, and it's right here, 55.69. It's it. And, this chart has a lot in it, especially if we get back to that 9 price. Which this is part of the thesis, right? Like it should cool down in September a little bit, but when that winter kicks in, I don't think they're gonna be able to keep prices down. I really don't.
Yeah, right. You're not going to see Boyle hit 40 again. I just don't. I
No,
don't see that. So
I think you're
yeah,
undershooting the PT if even short term. I think this thing can get back to triple digits just on one like news event, one flipping refinery fire or something.
oh yeah, right.
It
Yeah,
goes back to
I'm kind of,
100.
yeah, I'm sort of referring to the strikes I'm going to play, but when this goes, those 80 C will be in the money, well in the money, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I like it.
yeah.
And where are you on the sunshine, the solar? and just in general as a sector?
Yeah. So the ETF to follow here is TAN, and this has given back a lot of the big spike that happened in late July. And sort of what I see here, you have big October catalyst in the sector will be end phase earnings. And this has some pretty significant bullish flow back to 85 to
Five. Yep.
89 for October. So I think we will see a reversal, but short term, um, I'm looking to add TAN if I can as close to 70 as I can get it. Might not get to that. Maybe like 72.50 is kind of looking like the floor in options on it.
Not to talk
And you basically
not to
what's
talk charts, but those are you're hitting volume profiles on all your
that?
strikes.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
it's,
Yeah.
it's
So
perfect.
yeah, and yeah, not to get too much into the individual plays. We'll do that in a minute. But yeah, I mean it's kind of at a spot where it's getting interesting for a reversal is how I would put it.
Yeah, and I kind of touched base on that when, well, especially when we started going to this format, like that, the EV sector, or alternate energy, was definitely going to lead the way at the end of the month. Um, but we can't really predict things. But I think this is the one that goes first. Um, and from a TA standpoint, I'm hoping it's the one that goes first because I think it's in the charts that we follow are in the best spot currently. Even the ones that are kind of all time highs, in like in phase you mentioned, it's checking back to a level that really should build support for a bigger move. So um, I just like where that's looking. It's probably a little more interesting than cars or other battery technology or stuff like that, especially with the way minerals are around the world right now. It just seems like it's probably the most hopeful sector going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
You got anything else? We got about 25 here. You got anything else you want to throw in this, or just move on to the
Okay, so yeah, real quick, if for all this talk about when to short and what to do, I mean, really, the safest way to do it is to look at like SQQQ or UVXY and buy shares or really or long expiration calls on it. If you're someone who cannot sit there and watch charts all day, there's really no reason to risk getting burned on zero DTE spy puts or something like that. Just when we saw that this week, SQQQ gave
yes,
so many good entries and
yes,
would have these 5-6% days, and really kind of low stress way to short the market. So as you study charts and all that, look at those reverse ETFs, and they can be good. So yeah, that's the last thing.
perfect. Yeah, Professor always with the option knowledge bombs. He's been through a lot of the options, ups and downs. So it's nice that you always guide people, basically stepping stones through a lot of bullshit. So I like that. Um,
Yeah.
right on. Well, let's get on to our charting session here. This is enough of the free stuff. Do it for the charting session for our Discord. If you guys want more info on that, it's Jesus, big scan. It's follow us on Twitter, Market Monk Picks and 25Bs.